Welcome to the Rick Fuller Podcast, presented by Rick Fuller, the team leader of the #1 real estate team in the San Francisco Bay Area and Sac County for most recent sales, according to Zillow. Rick is a community leader, national real estate coach, and real estate investing expert. He and his team have also been nominated as Antioch Small Business of the Year for 2019. Congratulations, Rick and the team.
Thank you, Christina. We do have some amazing team members that help us really help a lot of families in the community. And that was really an awesome nomination.
Congratulations, yeah, well deserved. I'm Christina Morales, a writer and marketing specialist, and Rick is my friend, and he's my mentor in all things exercise, real estate, and finances, and investing. So this is going to take 5 hours with all of that.
Yes. We always have a lot more to cover than we do time, but we do cover a lot of information here.
Yeah, and it's great. And so today we're going to talk about how to buy a vacation rental Airbnb. Yeah. We've talked about owning homes to buy and rent out, but this is a great avenue to really dive into and learn more about. Not many people are talking about how to do it and how to do it successfully. Yeah. So thanks for your willingness to share your experience on this unique topic.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Christina. And you know, what initiated these podcasts for real estate investors or just anyone who wants to own different kinds of real estate is because there's so much misinformation out there. There's so many myths out there. There's so many misnomers. I just literally got off the phone with somebody an hour ago, and he's listening to late night infomercials telling him ways to do things that are just not going to work in the San Francisco Bay Area or Sacramento County. They just don't work. And so what we wanted to do was to give real life examples of what is working and what is productive and what is successful. And we've had the privilege now of helping over 1,000 people invest in real estate. And so I'll just tell you what we've seen, what we're doing, and what, you know, my wife and I have been doing for the last, well, almost nearly 20 years.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm excited to get started because Airbnb, HomeAway, Expedia.com, there's a bunch of these type of rental platforms, and it's newer in the past few years. And so can you tell me a little bit about how these rental sites have changed the vacation home landscape? Why did they come about, and how are they influencing this?
Well, you know, Christina, it's not new, but it is now what I would call organized.
Okay.
Think about it this way. Several years ago, if you were an investor, you might rent out a property and you might do a lease. By the way, lease is Latin for 1 year. That's what it means. That's what the word lease means. Or you might do a month-to-month tenancy, like they call it month-to-month. Like you do a lease or you do month-to-month. You do one of those two. But very few owners did short-term rentals. That's what it's called, short-term rental.
Okay.
And yet, you know, you think about it, Christina, your hotel's been in the short-term rental business forever, right? Mm-hmm. Your vacation resort, your campground's been in the short-term rental. But who was not in that business? Who was not participating? The homeowner. The homeowner was generally not participating, nowhere near the scale of the way they're participating now in a short-term rental business. And it gives a third option. You could now lease it, or you could do a month-to-month, or you could even do a short-term rental. And depending on the property, the area, the community, the market, a variety of factors, and we'll talk about several of them today, you may not want to do a long-term lease. You may not want to do a month-to-month, but you might want to do short-term rental properties, and which is often called Airbnb, HomeAway. Expedia promotes them, bookings.com, and there's a whole variety of platforms that you can use to do this. But it's a short-term rental, and that's what it is. And generally, people are staying maybe for a weekend, maybe for 5 days, maybe even for a week, instead of staying there for an entire month or year in a month-to-month tenancy or a 1-year lease.
Mm-hmm. So when buying a vacation home, what are the most important features to consider? Obviously, it's different than a home that you're buying for your family, or even just a regular home rental. What should we look for differently?
Well, I think that there are some similarities, but when you go out and you look for a home for your family, and you and I, Christina, you've got younger kids than I do. I've got 3 teenagers. But when you're looking at school districts, right? And maybe you're looking at, well, how close am I to the local park? Or, what about this neighborhood? What about the taxes? And those things are still important. They certainly help preserve the value of the property. But if you're going to look for a short-term rental, you've got to look at some additional things and that are outside of what you would traditionally think of when you're buying your own home or you're buying a single-family home that you're going to move into or live in. And here's a couple of them that most people don't think of. The first thing you have to think of is there a market for it? Mm-hmm. Like the Airbnb, the VRBO, the HomeAway, all of those are platforms to use. The short-term rental home, the vacation rental home must have a market. Now, the first thing you're going to look at is, well, what is my attraction? What drives them to that community? And we can pick out the obvious ones really quick. It might be a property that's on the beach. Mm-hmm. We're going to show a video later on about a property that we own that's a vacation rental on the beach. It might be on a lake. It might be in the mountains. It might be in close proximity to a Yosemite or to a Yellowstone, or there's an attraction. But it's certainly not limited to those. You could have a Airbnb or a short-term rental property, a vacation rental. It could be in a college town, not for the college students, but for the parents that need to come in and stay there, right?
Right.
And as I now have one of my daughters that's in college, we're looking at short-term rentals in that community. When we go there, we'll stay in a short-term rental because we've got two others that'll be staying with us, and the hotel thing is kind of challenging, right? Mm. But it also could be in close proximity to a convention center. Mm-hmm. And what it can also be is it doesn't have to be the entire home. It could be a portion of the home. So for example, you might have Airbnb. The founders of Airbnb, did you know where the air part comes from?
No.
The air part, the founders of B&B, it comes from air mattress. That's where it comes from. It's the idea of an air mattress. And it's the idea that you could come and you could stay with somebody around the world on a mattress, on an air mattress. That's kind of where the Airbnb concept came from, that they would blow up an air mattress in a back room somewhere. And that for some people that may be, that might turn them off. It might be appalling to think that they'd have a stranger or a guest in their home. But depending on the home configuration, it might be a very doable thing. Think about the homes that have accessory dwelling units. Mm-hmm. Think about the homes that have casitas. And think about the mother-in-law setup or that downstairs bedroom bathroom configuration. And so in some areas, it doesn't even have to be the entire structure that you're renting out. You could actually rent out a bedroom through Airbnb. That's a short-term rental. You think about a hotel, in a hotel or even a motel, you're not renting the whole hotel, are you?
Right.
You're only renting one spot, one room, maybe. I think about a resort, you're certainly not renting the entire resort. You think about a campsite, you're not renting the entire campsite, you're renting one spot. And a Airbnb can do that. And what's interesting, Christina, about looking at the right market, does have to have something that attracts them. Why do they want to come to your community? There has to be a drive, there has to be a convention center, it's a lake, it's a beach, it's in close proximity to activities or things that they want to do, or maybe a college. There's got to be something that causes them to search in that area. I've generally found that. And the greater that drive or that greater that amenity or the greater that attraction in the community, the more people that want to book it. And the less desirable that attraction is, the harder it is to find guests to stay. Whether you're renting out an entire home, that's certainly an option, we do that. Or you're renting out just a bedroom, or maybe you're in an area that has two homes on one lot, you're renting out the back house, and you could do that too because they're going to a convention center or something like that. The second thing that you're going to want to look at is look at the competition. Now, this one is very interesting. If you think about the market, I've described it, it's not a new market because hotels, campsites, resorts have been in short-term rentals for a long time, but it's been unorganized. And now you advertise on a VRBO. Do you know what the acronym VRBO is? Mm-mm. Vacation Rental by Owner. So you have an owner that's renting out their property. And so what I often see when it comes to competition is that the competition is not using the state of the art technology that exists today. So you don't have professional photos, you don't have professional videos, you don't have aerial drone footage that you could really easily implement. As real estate professionals, we would use that to sell property. You could very easily implement that and stand out apart from the competition.
Oh, such a good idea.
And so the owner, it's not the owner's fault, but they got an iPhone and that's their camera. They've got an iPad and that's their camera or whatever. And they're not taking professional photos. You know, we've talked about photos all the time, and the way the world is moving, photos and videos are so critical, especially right now during a pandemic.
Right.
People are walking through properties less, but they're walking through them online, virtually, digitally, a whole lot more. And so the vacation rental owner can create their own market and put them head and shoulders above their competition by engaging a professional photographer, by having the home staged or even virtually staged before they take the photos, right? And so we look at the competitiveness of the market. The other thing you could look at is you look at the inclusiveness of the property. Can you make it all inclusive? Well, so for example, a good vacation rental property is one that you can make all inclusive, meaning that they could come there and they can eat there. They can have entertainment there. Maybe they can see the ocean or the lake, or they can go boating or fishing or skiing or whatever. It might be a place in Tahoe. There's a lot of Airbnbs in Tahoe or VRBOs in Tahoe. But it's something that you can make where it's all inclusive. It's a kind of a one-stop shop. If I rent this place, I can eat here, I can stay here, I can play here, I can enjoy here, we can stay here in the place. And that's different than a hotel. Very few hotels will you stay in the hotel the entire time. But you can bridge that gap to vacation rentals. You can make it where they want to stay on site the majority of time. And you say, well, why would I want to do that? Because you can charge more, right? You can set yourself apart from the competitor, and you can charge more when you do this.
So would you find a home that's close to where you live so that way you can monitor it, or do you trust having someone manage it for you?
Well, I think there's a place where most people need help. You need leverage in a vacation rental. It is often, unless you're having somebody live in your own property, and especially when you look at some of the COVID implications. So you want to bring in a professional cleaner, right? So you already have that. And you may need to hire a property manager. That could be something that you do. And so you could own them locally, these Airbnb, or you could own them outside of the area. Now, the best way to vet a property manager is and the way that it's set up today, you can do that very easily online, because you can see how they're promoting properties. And you can actually see the calendar. Is the calendar full? Is the calendar for that property empty? If the calendar for the neighboring property is empty and the vacation property manager is managing it, that's the last property manager I want. But if they've got good marketing, they've got good advertising, and that calendar is booked, there's a strong demand and a limited number of supply for those vacationers, those going to stay on the property. Then that might be a good property manager. A good property manager has a landscaper. A good property manager has a cleaner, and they're following the COVID compliance requirements. A good property manager has a handyman, because things are going to happen. You bring people through your property on a regular basis, maybe every weekend or every other weekend. Things are going to happen. Do you have a property manager that can manage that and send out a handyman? Another one, what about supplies? Who's stocking the supplies? You often don't think about it in our home. You go to this grocery store once a week, couple of times a week, and you pick up on your toiletries, and you pick up your paper towels, and you pick up your soaps, and you pick up your cleaners. But with a vacation rental, if it's out of state, who's doing that?
Right.
When the paper towels run out, who's replenishing them? And you can't ask your guests, hey, I have Amazon being delivered today. Would you unload that for me and put that in the cabinet? Oh, no, I don't want it on that shelf. I want it on that. You can't do that with a guest that's paying. So what's the plan to have those supplies replenished on the property? And a good property manager can manage all of that for you.
That's great advice. And usually there are seasons that are busy and there are times of the year that are slow. How do you compensate for this ebb and flow? And you've mentioned COVID a few times. How are the situations today affecting vacation homes?
Well, COVID has had really, in my experience, an unprecedented impact on vacation rentals. I've never seen anything like it, and few people are talking about it. And if we look at, we'll use, I'll share with you two things that are happening when it comes to COVID and vacation rentals. The first one is in March, when COVID really began to become well known and there were implications. Many areas, especially in the state of California, limited what a vacation rental could do. For example, if you had tenants in the month of April and May and June, you probably, in the state of California, no matter where you were, you probably had to give them their money back. And you probably had to you could not require them to come to your property. You had to give them the money back, and they would go somewhere else because you could not have a short-term vacation rental. And so that was very, very concerning for a lot of vacation rental owners, to have that unprecedented loss of income. And maybe many of them didn't use the forbearance, so that they still had to pay their mortgage, and they still had to pay the property taxes, and they still had to pay for their insurance, and they still had to pay for all the supplies that are needed for the property. But here's an interesting change that's occurred. Because less people are taking flights, because less people are taking cruises today, because you have less people traveling overseas. When you look at flights today, there's a fraction of people that work.
True.
People still want a vacation. Now they're vacationing differently, and there is a demand right now for vacation homes that is just unprecedented. It is hard to find availability on vacation homes because so many people are saying, I don't want to take a plane. I'm not going to take a cruise ship, but I'll drive for my vacation. I still want to have a vacation. I'll drive to my vacation. And by the way, I'm going to take my family unit with me, and we're going to rent the entire house. So we're not in a hotel. We're not at a resort with lots of people. We've rented this house in its entirety. My family unit is moving to this, or living in this area. And staying in this area, and they're able to do that where the hotel or the resort or even the campsite makes that very, very difficult for them to do. And so right now there is a demand. There are so many guests that want to stay in a vacation rental. It's really unbelievable.
And like we mentioned before, there's a lot of different websites, like we said, Airbnb and VRBO and Expedia. How do you pick the one to advertise on? Do you advertise across more than one platform? What do you do?
So what we suggest, if you're going to buy a vacation rental, you'll want to use those websites to vet out that competition that I talked about earlier. What are the neighboring properties doing? What are they charging in rent? What kind of availability do they have? How full are their calendars? What are they charging for a cleaning fee? How about what's called transient occupancy tax, also known as tot tax? There's a tax for that. In some communities, it ranges. Some communities have a vacation fee or a guest fee or a non-resident fee. So you got to be aware of those things, and sometimes looking at those websites can help you do that. If you're new to that business, I would advocate be on all of them. Get on every one that's available. And that might be the Expedias, the HomeAways, the VRBOs. HomeAway and VRBO are just merged, so now it's just VRBO. Airbnb, you want to be on all of them. Now, over time, you might find that some sites are more expensive. Some sites are less productive. Some sites book the property less. And then you could start eliminating them over time. We certainly have. We went to every site that showed up on the first page of Google and applied. Now we have such a demand for our vacation rental property that I'm starting to remove us from other sites that they just charge too much, or the way that they advertise it is not how I want the property to be advertised, or they don't organize it well, or the guests don't seem to be happy with that particular platform. And so I would tell you, if you're just getting started in the business and you buy a vacation rental property, maybe you buy it in the mountains, maybe you buy it on a lake, river, on the ocean. If you do that, start with all the platforms. They might have expenses that you're not pleased with, and then over time, you can begin to remove your property from them.
Do they usually charge you like on a monthly basis or like on a per rental basis, and they take like a 5% cut? How do they usually charge?
It ranges. I'll give you a couple of examples. So you can have a membership with many of these sites, and it's a 1-year membership, and they'll collect a credit card or debit card on behalf of the guest. They'll market and advertise your property, and they'll do a lot of what's called retargeting. Have you ever noticed, Christina, if you're looking at a hotel or an Airbnb or a VRBO, and then all of a sudden you go to your Facebook feed, like all of a sudden that hotel or that VRBO or that Airbnb, that they've got a really good deal and it's showing up in your Facebook feed. How did that happen? Well, it's called retargeting. You went to that website, you looked at that property, and now they are going to retarget that. They're going to put it on your news feed. They're going to put it on your favorite, whatever URL that you use to get your news. They're going to put it on your Facebook. They might put it on Instagram. They're going to put it everywhere, and you're going to see it. And so you're paying for that. Some of these companies charge an annual fee, and then you pay the annual fee, and they'll promote your property. Mm-hmm. Most of them charge a percentage of the total sales. And some of them send you the rental income immediately, and some of them wait till the guest arrives, and then they distribute it, and they usually deposit it right into your bank account, and others wait till the guest actually leaves and then make the deposit. And they all range depending on the company that you're with. Some of these companies, you can go as far as you can go as far as listing them with their company and then pre-approving anyone that comes in to rent your property. So you have what they call instant approval. You immediately, you put it out there, they put in their credit card, and they're approved and they're booked, and it shows up on your online calendar. For other people, for other organizations, they'll ask you, would you like to rent to this person? Would you like to rent this weekend to these people? And then you can approve it or you can decline it, whatever you want to do. And you talked about seasonality. Mm-hmm. There is seasonality. You think about when you want to go to the lake, you probably think about going to the lake in the summertime. And you think about going skiing, snow skiing in the wintertime. Mm-hmm. And you might think about going to the ocean during when the whales are migrating through, which is usually spring and fall. And so every community and every area and every destination has different months of desirability. And so then you can control that by reducing the rent, oftentimes in the slower months, and increasing it in busier months. You can also reduce the rent in slower months and then increasing it on particular days, like perhaps Thanksgiving or maybe Christmas or Easter is a very popular time for a vacation rental property, maybe in the heat of summer. And you could actually spread that out and reduce the rent so that you're more competitive in the wintertime. And then yet during key holidays or during the summertime, based on whatever drive there is to that particular community, mm-hmm. your rent can be a little bit more market rate. Hotels do this all the time. If you ever travel to a place like a convention is a great example. When you look at a convention, it's a very, very large convention center, the cost of the hotel rooms go up. And the reason they go up is because there's a limited supply and there's a strong demand. Then there's no convention and the cost at that hotel is much less. They've figured it out. Most vacation rental owners don't do that, but it certainly is an option to provide incentive to come to the property in the off season and a little bit more of a premium during the on season. Mm-hmm. The other thing that you can do, and I particularly like this option, I'm regularly running this option on our vacation rental property, and it's if you rent 4 nights, you get the 5th free. Mm-hmm. And so the goal here is to incentivize anyone that's interested in renting the property for 3 nights to now move to 4 and get the 5th free. And so maybe you get just a little bit more rental income. And then, by the way, every time you have a guest that leaves, you need to have a cleaner and up additional supplies and maybe make some repairs to the property. And so you spread out that cleaner a little better rather than having them come in, 2 nights or just one night and then having to clean the property all over again. So there's some benefit to both you, the vacation rental owner, and to the guest on having these properties where you could do 4 nights and get the 5th free, or 3 nights and get the 4th free, or 5 nights and get the 6th free. I like that option because you get somebody who really gets a chance to enjoy the property.
That's awesome. You talked about on a past podcast, when someone's renting just a regular home, how to attract the right renters that are going to pay on time, that are going to respect the property. Do you have to consider the same things? You mentioned that you can vet your renters on one of these websites. So, but is there a way that we should advertise or word the site that attracts the right people?
Yeah, and that's a great question, Christine. And that's we talk a lot about that when we talk about renting out single family homes, right? Or a condo or a townhome, we're renting it out. And we're an advocate that you want to have a lot of people apply so that you can select the best qualified. I want to make sure I'm clear on that. We're looking at financial qualifications. We're not looking at things that that would be deemed discriminatory, right? We're looking at financial qualifications. We're looking at the things that ensure that you're going to get a rent on a long-term rental property.
Mm-hmm.
We're not discriminating based on family or gender, sex, or racial lines. What we're doing is we're saying, look, this tenant is financially capable to rent the property.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to a vacation rental property, you might want to require that they've applied with the organization, and that you want to make sure that they've agreed to your terms. So some of the terms that you want them to agree to on a vacation rental, you may want to have them agree that there's no smoking in the property. You may want to agree that there are pets or no pets on the property. And you probably want to make sure that they agree to the term that there's no parties in the property, right? You don't want that, and it depends on the neighborhood, and it depends on the size of the park, but you want to make sure that's clearly listed right from the beginning. And so that process can begin to, help produce better quality tenants, better quality guests, and those that are going to better treat the property, and you'll have less damage. In certain neighborhoods, having a party, a small party is not a problem, but you have a large party, and it is a huge problem. It's a significant. You think about retirement communities. You think about homes. Then there was a situation in Orinda, California, where people did this huge party, and people were shot at the property. So we want to make sure that those rules are in place. We want to make sure they agree to those rules. Airbnb, VRBO, HomeAway, Expedia, they have their own rules. You want to make sure that you are very clear and concise with those rules before you accept a guest. And it's okay if the guest says, no, this is not the right property for me. No problem. Then we'll find another guest to stay there. You really don't want to compromise on those rules.
I love that, because I think that's one of the biggest worries that people have. So thank you for addressing that.
And you can you can make it very, very clear in the portal, or even have them sign a lease agreement or an agreement. It wouldn't be a lease agreement, but it would be a tenancy agreement that they're going to adhere to those rules.
Okay.
And you may have some other rules. And one of the things that you want to consider on a vacation rental is really minimizing your exposure, limiting the risks associated with a vacation rental. Sometimes people go and think, oh, this would be such a perfect property. Look at it. It has all the amenities. It's got the hot tub, and it's got the swimming pool, and it's got all this stuff. And but every time a guest comes in, especially now with the pandemic, there are going to be requirements that you have to do on that swimming pool or that spa or that hot tub. So making it where it is efficient, and limiting your risk. I would not put a hot tub today in a vacation rental because of the requirements to maintain that hot tub. And people ask me all the time, oh, it'd be great to have a hot tub. And it would be. I would love to have a hot tub at one of our vacation rentals, but it's very difficult to maintain it with the parameters that are necessary with COVID. Another one might be careful about how you design the property. Have you designed it where it is very fragile? You've got you've got decorations, or you've got things in the property. If it gets bumped and broken, that's going to be a problem. How about the flooring? If you're not careful, do you scratch the floor when you move a chair, when you move a couch? These things are going to happen. So what kind of flooring do you go with? How about the paint? Do you paint it all white and therefore it shows every imperfections, every scuff, every nick, every suitcase that was dragged to the back room? Or do you do more of an earth tone color that, you know, kind of tones that down a little bit? What do you do to make sure that the property, that you're limiting your risk, you're limiting your exposure, and you're able to provide a safe, clean, enjoyable experience for your guests? And that is exactly what you're trying to accomplish, because at the end, you want them to leave a 5-star review. You're going to want them to, because the property, the more reviews you have and the more 5-star reviews you have specifically, the more you're going to rent the property. And that occurs on Airbnb, that occurs on VRBO, that occurs on HomeAway, that occurs on all Expedia, that TripAdvisor. People are reading the reviews. And so how you design the property matters. The amenities that you put in the property matter. As simple as it sounds, the color of the paint, the type of flooring, the type of countertops, the type of cabinetry. Is it a cabinet? You know, in my house, Christina, I've got a couple of cabinet doors and they're falling off, right? You know, I've got 3 kids at home. They're teenagers. That means they've been living in the home for a while. And you're going to know what I'm talking about as your kids get a little older. I can't have that on a vacation rental property.
No, right.
I can't have those nuances. You know, your key, you think about it, you put it in the lock and you got to jiggle it just right. You can't have that on a vacation rental property because not everybody's going to know those nuances. So you have to design it. You know, I describe it as doing the mental work necessary. And you have to begin with the end in mind. The end in mind is that you have a clean, you have an efficient, you have a property that limits your exposure and your risk, and that you can quickly prepare it for the next guest so that you can welcome them. The property looks good and it feels good and it smells good, and they can walk in and they can enjoy their time.
I love that, because you said before, don't buy an investment property and walk into it and say, that's where I would put my couch, or because that's not your home. What's going to be most profitable, and the laminate floor and the non-white walls are going to get you the biggest bang for your buck. So that's great.
I once had a home, Christina, and I did this was back when Pergo was brand new to the market. I did laminate floor throughout the kitchen. And of course, you know, somebody spills something and that laminate floor is going to buckle. You've probably seen it as you've walked in, and you see that every seam is kind of buckled with the laminate flooring. Those are the types of things you would never do on any rental property, especially on a vacation rental property, because people, they aren't going to always maintain the property or manage the property like you would. You know, when you're at a resort or a hotel, do you walk around the hotel and, you know, do a little caulking or a little painting on? Of course not, right? You'd never do that. People don't do that on your vacation rental. You need to provide that, you know, that clean, that efficient. You need to limit your risk, and you need to be able to turn it over quickly. You need to be able to, when tenant exits, you can clean it, have the proper procedures done so that you're in compliant, and then be able to welcome the next guest, and it looks like new when they do.
So let's do a little scenario here. Let's say I have great Aunt Lucy. She dies, leaves me a nice inheritance. Thank you, Aunt Lucy. I'm not sure if I want to have a vacation home rental or if I want to buy a traditional home and rent that out. Can you give me some pros and cons of each?
So let's talk about, and by the way, I don't have an Aunt Lucy. Do you?
No, that's why this is a horrible situation. No.
Where do we apply for an Aunt Lucy?
If I knew, that would be the next podcast.
Maybe we should Ancestry.com and see if we do have an Aunt Lucy way back, you know, maybe way back in time.
Deal.
So let's look. So here are some benefits to the vacation rental. Believe it or not, you can generally get a higher income. If you followed some of the steps that I gave you originally, you can get a higher income. And that's a major factor, right? You could get a higher income if you can get 3 or 4 weekends covered. It probably exceeds that which you could have received for a monthly rent on a property by doing the long term. So that's one major benefit. Another major benefit, an obvious benefit, most people use these vacation rentals as a second home, and they're able to take their family there. You know, when you go on a nice vacation, Christina, and I know with COVID, this is a terrible topic because people are like, nobody's been on vacation lately, or you go on a cruise, you go to a resort, and you know when you get the feeling when you leave the cruise ship, or you get the feeling when you leave the resort, you're like, I don't know if I'll ever come back here again.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a feeling that kind of brings the vacation down a little bit. You're like, wow, that was great. I loved it. It was so nice, but I don't know if we'll ever go back here again. That feeling goes away with the vacation rental because you own it. You're coming back in a month or two, or you're coming back in a week or two, or you're coming back in 3 to 4 months. You're always rescheduled to come back. Maybe you're bringing supplies. Maybe you're bringing a caulking gun or a paintbrush, but you're always coming back to the property.
Yeah.
And that feeling of, oh, vacation's over, it is removed in the vacation rental because the vacation's never over. You're just rescheduling your next time back. And I've honestly, personally, we've enjoyed that feeling. I never thought that would be an important factor in a vacation rental. But as I'm talking to other vacation rental owners, and we're helping others do the same thing, and helping them find vacation rentals, they're like, I don't have that feeling like when I'm on vacation that it's over, because it doesn't end. It just is delayed till the next time I come back. And so that's another major, I think, a major benefit. You get to use it, and you get to make it a part of your life. You get to make it a part of your family. You get to celebrate holidays there. And ultimately, you control the calendar. And so if you think about it, I couldn't go to any of my single family rental houses right now. They control the calendar. I've given them a year lease or several year lease.
True.
Or a month-to-month tenancy. And I've got to give note. And I could simply book a week and then go to that property. And I could do that at any given time. So I really like that about vacation rentals. And of course, what's obvious about vacation rental is often they're in an area that are desirable. And you may want to go and spend some time on the ocean, or spend some time at the beach or lake or river or in the mountains, or where you can go snow skiing, or whatever amenity that's in that community, whatever attracts people to that community. So those are some of the things that I think are their benefits of owning a vacation rental. Let's look at some things that are maybe more beneficial to owning a longer term rental, month to month, or a lease agreement. You might buy a single family house and they're going to stay there for a year or more. And there's some benefits to that too. In contrast to the vacation rental, for example, the vacation rental, if you had 4 guests like I described that came in the month, you got to have 4 cleaners. Somebody's got to manage that. Now, it doesn't mean you have to have the scrub brush in hand, but you've got to coordinate that. When you have people that come to your house, when you first rent out a single family home and they live there for a year, that first week, they almost always have questions for me. Rick, where's the switch to the garbage disposal? Or I'm curious, what about this? Or what about that? And they have questions. And you multiply those questions in a vacation rental property. So you're fielding a lot more communication than with a long-term tenant, right? They get accustomed to the home. It becomes their home in a long-term tenancy situation, where your vacation rental is a little bit different in the fact that they're often asking you questions throughout. Where do I find this? Where are the flashlights at, right? Now, how do I turn on the stove? What about the light that's in the refrigerator? When does that, and these are things that people discover on their own when they move into a property. And you often have to duplicate those answers. And you can do that through canned emails and things like that, but you are going to have to respond. The other thing that you should be aware of is that occasionally you'll get a guest that doesn't treat the property the way you treat it. Now, I have found that your price has a huge impact on that. If you have a very, very low price on your rental income for the short-term rental, your weekend rates are really, really affordable, you sometimes get guests that don't treat the property. When you increase that rental rate, it tends to increase the quality of the tenant and how they maintain your property. So it's not uncommon that you can go to a property and then you have a guest come in and I got to go back to the property to make a repair. or something broke, or something's not working properly. And you try to manage that in what I talked about earlier by minimizing your risk, by preparing the home, not with it being a primary residence in mind, but this is a vacation rental. I want it to be easy. I want it to be durable. I want it to be easy to clean. It's going to limit my risks. I don't have to go in and do a lot of little things to manage the property on a regular basis. But on a vacation rental, you could have people that come in and you may need to make some repairs quicker than you would on a long-term rental. So some pluses and minuses, if you will. Of course, with a long-term rental, you have a lease agreement. Maybe a lease agreement's Latin for 1 year. So you have 12 payments that they're obligated to pay as a landlord. And so people like that, like, hey, I'm guaranteed 12 months. You often don't have that on the vacation rental. You're not guaranteed any rental income. And sometimes people cancel, right? At the last minute, they're like, hey, I can't make it for whatever reason. And you have a cancellation policy and all of that. And so sometimes the consistency of the income can be greater with a single family or a condo or townhome that you're renting out.
Mm-hmm. Well, you have a home in Bodega Bay, and with your permission, I would love to show how you were saying professional photography, drone photography. So can we show that?
So this is a property, when we found this home, this is a property that we bought and we completely remodeled with everything I've told you. We tried to begin with the end in mind. This is a property in Bodega Bay, California. The website's bodegabaybeachhome.com. If you're interested, you can book there. It's got a 180-degree view of the Pacific Ocean. It's absolutely beautiful. And you'll see as it's kind of touring you through the home, it's got some desirability. It's got some attraction. People are going to be, watching the ocean, watching the whales migrate. The whales are migrating both in the fall and in the spring. You'll also notice that it's pretty durable. Matter of fact, we use the LVT flooring, the luxury vinyl tile flooring. We've painted it kind of an earth tone color paint. There's a wainscoting that's on the walls to minimize the bumps and scratches and things that often happen with the sheetrock. And so this is a vacation home again in Bodega Bay. And it's something, and this home frankly stays rented most of the time. Very rarely is it available, especially short term. If you want to rent something immediately, it's generally rented out several weeks. You'll notice that we've taken the advice that I've given you of making it all inclusive. There's a ping pong table, there's a pool table, there are 4 fireplaces, there are I think 3 flat screen TVs to the property. It's got a deck and a patio. It's got a wood burning fireplace, an electric fireplace, got propane fireplaces. And so this is an example of a property that's all inclusive, that's in an area that people want to visit. There's a lot of things to do. There are activities, there are beaches and trails that people like to go hiking on. Sometimes they've been camping in the community. They've been staying at campgrounds and they want to kind of maybe do something a little bit different, and they'll do that and they'll stay in it. Or sometimes they have friends that are camping at the local campgrounds, and they'll rent out the house while their friends are at the campground. And so this can give you a visual idea. We did use the drone footage. We did use the professional photography on this property to really set us out apart from the competitors. One of the things that we've done with this property, which was really, really cool, we really wanted to make it where when you were at this property, you were in some sense educated on the historical value of Bodega Bay. And so you'll see all the pictures throughout the home. My wife took these pictures. They're of local beaches. They're of local marinas. And it just tells the story. The 2 maps we have on the wall go from San Francisco and the Farallon Islands all the way out to Point Arena. You'll notice that we use the aerial drone footage. I can't tell you how often people are watching these videos on various websites that we put them out there. You'll notice that it's got the granite countertops, it's got the dual pane windows. We've also taken the initiative to write blogs on our favorite restaurants. So there's our favorite restaurant. When we're in that area, we'll go to a local church. There's our favorite parks. There's our favorite hiking trails, our favorite beaches. And so what happens is I'll have a guest there at the property, and I'll simply send them the link, and I'll say, here are Jennifer and I's favorites.
So smart.
And then they just click on it, you know, because if you're in a hotel and you're like, okay, what restaurants do I eat at? And, you know, what entertainment is there? What activity? So I just send them the link, and then they can go to all of our favorite, and they read a blog about, you know, the local restaurant. There's a local fishitarian in this area. There's a local wharf, and we'll talk about our experience there. And then people could scroll through, and if they like it, they go to those, and gives them a variety of options. We also talk about whale migration season, and so they know where to go see the whales and what that looks like. So all of that combined can help provide your customer, your guest, a much better experience, and that's the goal. You want them to love their experience. When they do, Christina, they write about it, and that begets more opportunities for you, more rental opportunities. Now, I want to share one other thing, Christina, because you're walking through this property and kind of giving me, you know, just some additional thoughts I wanted to share.
I'm so impressed. Yeah, when we're done here, I'm going, can you tell me the website again? It is.
Yes, I'll give you the combo lockbox code, and you can
sold. I love it. Yeah.
But perhaps you know, I talked about some things that we learned in the process. We learned in the process a lot about owning vacation rental homes. It's why we're doing this podcast, so that people can learn from the things that, you know, that are experienced. But one of the things that I learned, and I did not expect this, is the joy that we have had, the satisfaction of reading the guest log. You know, if you've ever been at a lodge or a resort, you have a little guest book. You don't get this at a hotel, but you get it at a lodge or resort. And vacation rentals are known for having a guest book. And the number of anniversaries that have been celebrated, the number of proposals, marriage proposals, engagements that have occurred on this property, the number of birthday parties, you know, children, and then all ages of birthday parties. The number of birthday parties that have occurred at this property have just been unprecedented. People have, I have learned so much from our guests. They tell me about local restaurants. We had a guest there a couple of months ago, told me about a pizza place that I've never eaten at. So I've told my wife, next time we're there, we'll be able to. Like, you learn about the community, you learn about the area, and it's one of the great joys of owning a vacation rental that is so, it's just not talked about, is the great experiences. You know, you think about when your family goes on vacation, it's like we have great experiences when we go on vacation. And in some sense, you're a little tiny piece of that as a property owner, right? As a vacation rental owner, you're a little piece of it. And they write these stories that just, it's the highlight of our, when we go to visit the property. My wife and I will go in, and we almost have a little discussion or debate on who gets to read them. Okay, I'm going to read it. No, wait till after dinner. Then we're going to sit down and read them together. No, I'm going to read them. No, you're going to read. And we have this discussion because we're so excited to read about the experience of people at the property. And to me, that just makes it just that much sweeter that they're having so much fun. They're having so many great memories. Kids are off the Xbox. The kids are off the Nintendo. They're learning about nature. They're walking through the tide pools. They're seeing some amazing beaches. And that could be the case for you. It doesn't have to be on the ocean. That could be in the mountains. It could be in Yosemite or Yellowstone. It could be on a beautiful river. There's one of our favorite vacation rentals outside of ours is in Healdsburg, right there on the Russian River. And so there are all of these rewards that come with owning a vacation rental. Yes, the finances are there. Yes, the investment is there. Yes, you own real estate that is generally going up in value. Yes, you own real estate in areas that are high desire and high demand. But then there's this intrinsic emotional value where you own this property And people come back time and time and time and time again, and that becomes their family vacation home. And you are, you're providing that environment. You're reading about their stories. We've become some very good online friends with people that have been to the property 3, 4, 5 times, and they just love it. And they show up, they take great care of the property. They tell me all about their stories and their memories with their family, and we were a small part of that.
Oh, that's awesome. I love how you always bring the bigger picture in. And I know you're very generous with your property too, with your team and sharing it with us. So it's incredible. Thank you, Rick. And that's all the time we have for today. That was a ton of valuable information as always. So thank you for sharing your knowledge and experience with us. Be sure to visit our webpage, Investors Thrive, and join our Facebook group, Investors Thrive, to stay on top of the best real estate investing news and information. And I will also link your vacation home to the YouTube video and to our pages because your home is gorgeous and it's a great reference for people to take pictures and drone footage. So it's a great resource. So thank you for sharing that with us. Next week's podcast is one I am so excited about. We have our amazing web designer, Clifton. You're going to have to help me with the last name, Rick.
I call him Clifton Good Imbonigo. And if that is going to be a great podcast, I'm very, very excited because he built the website you just looked at, and he's probably built 5 or 6 websites for us. He's built websites for real estate professionals all over the country, and I'll be walking through with him on what he's been doing. I literally have been working with Clifton for the last, I think, nearly 10 years.
Wow.
And I have 2 more websites he's building for me right now as we speak. So, I mean, he's the perfect guy, and he's a lot of fun, and he's one of the most knowledgeable people I know about web design. So you're really going to enjoy it.
And he's brilliant, and he's a bodybuilder, so we can make t-shirts that say, our web designer can beat up your web designer.
That's exactly right.
So join us next week when Clifton tells us how to build a web presence that attracts qualified real estate buyers and sellers every time. And Rick, the proof is in the pudding right there. Thank you for spending part of your day with us. And remember what Rick always says, not owning real estate is hazardous to your wealth. Thanks, Rick.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.